everyone, back with another tutorial yet again. Today I'm going to be talking about my approach to getting vocals to sit in an aggressive mix, meaning like hard rock, metal, that sort of thing. So this will touch on the more aggressive screaming aspect as well as the singing and things I would do to get it to work well with the other instruments. Here I have a track by a band that I've been having the pleasure of mixing for called The Fight. You should definitely check them out. They're a killing group of people and they have an album on the way. It's just been a real pleasure getting to work with these guys and work on the sounds with them. So I'm going to go ahead and play a piece of the song here so you get an idea of what's going on.
Crave the light that fills your face. The lonely hour of our justice starts when we sing to daylight and a treasure that missing. The shade of the passion side, ocean fly. His word is in my heart, a burning fire in my bones. I am not alone.
So vocal processing in modern music is a very in-depth topic, and I could probably go on and on for hours discussing all the different things that can be done. And again, this is also what I've taught myself how to do, and I'm sure there are 1,000,001 ways to go about getting a similar result, doing different methods. So I'm going to start off talking about the aggressive vocal since it comes first in the song. Just keep it simple that way. I went ahead and disabled the signal chain there and the sends to the different effects tracks, as well as the couple alterations I did in the grand vocal bus there. So I'm going to go ahead and play just this vocal with the mix so you can see how it sounded before anything.
The lonely hour of our justice starts when we sing to daylight and a treasure that missing. The shade of the passion side.
Just going down the list of the things I do. I first did a Deesser just to essentially clean up all the nasty sibilants that can build up, especially when I'm sending to something like a distortion bus like you see here. It'll really accentuate those things, and it's good to really tame that area. You can even see in the plugin around 7K. The high end really depends on the vocal and stuff. That's the setting that I prefer. I keep the actual reduction a little mild, but it just pulls down the S's and those type of movements.
The lonely hour of our justice starts when we sing to daylight and a treasure that missing. The shade of.
So the reason why I do that first is because the EQ comes next, and I tend to high shelf a lot to give it a certain brightness and sparkle that rests on top of the entire mix. And getting rid of the nasty stuff that happens in that same frequency range first allows me to get away with some boosting without bringing up that extra sort of harsh activity. So visiting the EQ, you can see the high shelf there. It's pretty steep, +7 there. Take these numbers with a grain of salt. Every vocal is different because there's so many variables like the singer and the vocal mic and where they recorded it. There's preamps involved. There's an endless amount of things. In this case, it came off a little dark at first, so main objective was to brighten that up. As for the other moves, I tend to just notch out things that tend to resonate and not really help the actual tonality, or if anything, they kind of mask the clarity and sort of create a lack of fidelity. For instance, this guy right here, there's a certain mid-range areas that make it sound like, to me, like they're singing through a tube, but you'll see what I mean right here.
Of the passion side, what have you lived as a slave to? And how will you over?
Getting rid of that sort of activity there really helps. As for these other little things here, it's typically just a microphone thing. Sometimes there's build-ups in certain frequencies. In this case, it was between, say, like 750 and 2K. I just wanted to dip that out a little bit. And then for these notches, it's basically resonations that sound really harsh, and there can be a lot of different factors that cause it. With this type of music, you don't want to have vocals contribute upper mid-range harshness because there's a lot of things resting in that same spot in this type of music. And you just got to make sure that things are as clean and high fidelity as possible, essentially.
I come, slime not before first fruit. The tiles of these are noxious, so weary sun. The shade of the passion sign.
I'll go ahead and just bypass the EQ altogether and you can hear the difference.
The shade of the passion sign. What have you lived as a slave to? And how will you?
It is a bit lower in the mix because when you send things to effects tracks, it does create an increase in gain just simply because you're adding signal to it. So the next thing on the list is staged compression, meaning one compressor does a little and you layer that, as opposed to having one compressor do a ton of work, which I feel like can sound unnatural. So the order I like to do it is have an opto-style compressor, which is essentially a soft-knee, like a slow-acting compressor that just rounds off the level changes, or the peaks rather. The thing I like to do with all the compressors, actually, not just this one, is I like to see the compressor not move sometimes when the quiet words come in, because my philosophy, if it's doing gain reduction the entire time, then all you're essentially doing is just lowering the overall volume. So I like to see that it's grabbing things that get way louder and then staying the same when the quiet things come through, because that just implies that you are taming the peaks and raising the lows with the output gain that you have.
What have you lived as a slave to? And how will you overcome?
So my second compressor acts a little differently. It's essentially a limiter, or a peak limiter. It's an incredibly fast attack and fast release because I just want it to grab the really tall peaks that remained after the first compressor. So it's not doing anything drastic, it's simply keeping the really loud parts from being too loud. Again, it's just a leveling out process, just in a different way.
I will look up to the sky and carry on with this fight, because for me he died, he is alive.
And then the last thing is just something I like to do to kind of just do one last leveling out. It's the RVox. I do it really gently. Again, I don't like it to act too hard on everything or reduce every word in volume. So turning back on my volume automation and having the whole chain there, here's how it sounds.
I will look up to the sky and carry on with this fight, because for me he died, he is alive.
So moving on to the clean vocal here. The cleans actually came out sounding spectrum-wise a way that I liked. It sat in the mix fairly well. I just did some small movements. And the compression series is exactly the same as the screen vocal, just a little less on the gain reduction, but the same philosophy applies.
His word is in my heart, a burning fire in my bones. I am not alone.
To keep things brief, I'm going to move on to the just the effects sends. With the aggressive vocal, I like to send it to a distortion bus. I just use a stock plugin. It really doesn't, you just gotta find one that works for you. The amount that you blend it in also depends. I find that it just gives it a presence. It makes the mid-range a little bit more powerful, especially when it's competing with all these elements.
Lonely hour of our justice starts when we sing to daylight, and a treasure that missing.
My reverb is just a long plate. It's Reverb, I believe. Yep, Reverb. Then I just dip out the low end because that can be muddy. I try to high pass everything if it's not really going to contribute to the low end.
The shade of the passion sign. What have you lived as a slave to? And how will you overcome? Swing not before first fruit.
And then last is the delay. I use it more as a throw and not as like a constant thing. Especially in that big moment at the very beginning. I do a lot of delay there. It makes it feel like it was layered in a way when you didn't actually have to duplicate it and layer it.
Crave the light that fills your eyes.
So for that, it's just a decent amount of feedback, quarter note delay. I roll off a lot of the high end because feel like it sounds more ethereal, I guess is the word, when you take away that high end and you don't get this exact carbon copy repeat of the vocal. It just sounds a little bit more interesting, and it fills in the mix in a cool way.
His word is in my heart.
So adding the same effects to the singing in the chorus, you got this.
His word is in my heart, a burning fire in my bones. I am not alone.
Yeah, there's also a doubler in there, I forgot to mention. I just add that subtly. It makes it thicker. I try to get the doubler up to a point where it doesn't actually sound like it's starting to chorus the vocal, but it's just giving it a thickness.
My greater waves will part at the sound of your name.
So I'm going to save time, just move to the vocal bus, the C4. In short, I'm essentially making sure that certain words or syllables that could produce more frequencies than others are ducked down, so it's more not just a dynamic evenness, but also like a spectral evenness.
If I should fall into a sea of unbelief.
And then slash EQ, I just roll off everything below 100 because I don't need it. And then just the last little shelf just for everything entirely.
Crave the light that fills your eyes. The lonely hour of our justice starts when we sing to daylight. This is an example of the blood and wine's rise. The heads of the giants setting high. Hear the light that fills your eyes. The heads of the giants.
So just to sum everything up briefly that I've been discussing, the objectives to get a vocal to sit in a mix well, especially in this style of music, is you need to level out the peaks and the lows volume-wise as much as you can. Get the EQ to work in such a way that you're getting the mid-range to feel like it's working with the band and not simply just resting on top of it, if that's what you're going for anyway. And a varying amount of effects, things like reverb and delay, they really get a vocal to kind of rest inside the mix, so to speak. I'm probably going to do another video discussing all the extra things, automation, clip gaining, layering, throws, effects, things like that. So I hope this was helpful for people that are trying to get their vocals to sit in their mixes. And I'll see you guys soon with another tutorial.